everybody. Welcome to our little show here. Hi, Alice.
Hi, Becca. Hi, everyone in chat.
So I think Linda might be sleeping. I sent her the link, but I know this might be early for her because I know her schedule changed recently. But she may pop in. But it is an open panel, so if anybody wants to participate, please feel free to click the link in the chat. Hold on, let me see if I can move this so I can post the link in there again. Yeah, it's an open panel. Everyone who supports Brendan is more than welcome to jump up here and to join us and comment on this stuff or throw in your 2 cents. We're going to be going over post-conviction stuff. We're at part 4 now with the Richard Leo cross-examination. Right now, Steve Drizzen is talking to professor, lawyer. I don't know. What do you call it? What's a lawyer, a law attorney at law? Steve Drizzen. I know you say like doctor, whatever, but like for a lawyer, what do you just say? Their name, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
he's a
Doctor such and such. Dr. Leo, yeah.
Dr. Leo. I think Steve Drizzen's a professor. So anyway, so if you guys want to jump up, you can. But right off the bat, I believe we're on page 149. So I left off right here, and I have a feeling it's because I left off at this question right here. So he's basically been asking him to kind of describe what false confessions are, how he
describes it.
Yeah, thank you. I was trying to find the word to describing. He describes false confessions and the process that he has, that he kind of determines if it's a false confession, how interrogations work, a whole bunch of really interesting information here that he has. So let's see. So this question is, in addition to the news stories and broadcasts you cite in your affidavit in this case, did we send you? Okay, so he's asking him if he sent him all sorts of reports. So he sent him everything that they possibly could on Brendan's case. So the DVDs, the interrogations, every interrogation that was recorded. Michael Kelly's, I call it an interrogation. I don't know if it was considered. I don't know if they technically consider what Michael Kelly did interrogation, but I consider
they would probably class it as an interview, Becca, because it was just an interview, but it was an interrogation. No matter how you look at it, it was an interrogation.
Yeah, I consider interrogation. He was interrogated. He used the same tactics that an interrogator would use.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not alive without a yawn from Becca. Yep. I don't know what it is. I could be sitting here playing Fortnite for hours and not a single yawn, but the second I go live, I'm like, oh. So anyway. Yeah. So he basically sent him all this stuff, news reports. Now I'm gonna focus. So the question he did. Okay, now I'm going to focus on specifically on the interrogation beginning February 27th. But just generally, a couple of questions. When you look at the videos in this case, did you observe some psychological interrogation tactics? And he responds, yes. Drizzen asks, did you observe some psychological coercive tactics? Didn't you just ask that? Psychological
interrogation, and then psychologically.
Okay, coercive. I was like, didn't I just say that word? Yes. Okay. Can some of these tactics that you observed, if repeated over and over, become psychologically coercive? And he says yes. So, in and of themselves, some of these tactics may not be psychologically coercive. Correct. But if repeated over and over, they can become psychologically correct, coercive. In combination with other tactics, yes. Okay. Now let's start with the February 27th question of Brendan Dassey at school. It's Mr. Cut High School. Just a side note, I do believe we have the transcripts of that on the File Play website and in our Discord, and I think even on their Discord. So if you guys want to read those transcripts, they're very interesting, I think, because this is where you start to see them really, like, every interrogation leading up to March 1st, you start to see them plant details into Brendan about the story they want him to say. And so to me, it's like a roadmap up to March 1st. And I feel like a lot of people should read these transcripts, because then you'll start to see, like, I believe in this particular one, they ask him about body parts. Did you see body parts? Did you see body parts in the fire? What did you see? Describe, blah, blah, blah. And of course he didn't see body parts, because he's like, toes? Well, do you just see severed toes in the fire, or did you actually see a foot? And Brendan doesn't know how to answer that, because Brendan didn't know what he saw. Technically. No. He didn't see toes in that fire. He would have saw, I just want to, it's very graphic, unfortunately, what they're trying to make him admit to doing. But if he saw toes or fingers or something, he would have seen a hand, he would have seen a foot, he would have seen a leg, you know what I mean? It's not just like, oh, a toe peeking out of the fire. No. He would have seen a whole body.
Yeah, and if he'd have seen a whole body, Becca, he would have said, "I seen a body." You know what I mean? If he said that he's seen toes or whatever, he would have said, "I seen a leg," because your toes are at the end of your leg. Exactly. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And not once in his interrogation did they ask him, "Did you cut up a body?" They just, did he cut up a body? Did Steven cut up a body? So no, you couldn't have seen just toes. You see what I'm saying? They didn't think about that, because I'm sorry, I've been watching a lot of that Jeffrey Dahmer thing too. So that's something that occurred to me. Unfortunately, I was watching a lot of things I connect to this case, because I'm like, well, Jeffrey Dahmer cut up body and spread it across his backyard. But like, if you think about it, if Brendan claims he only saw parts of body, that means that they would have had to have cut up the body, and they didn't even ask them about that.
Nope.
They didn't even consider that.
Darkside says they asked 3 questions in one. Then before he can think another few questions, let him answer one at a time, for fuck's sake. Yeah, I mean, that's what annoyed me about all Brendan's interrogations, is the fact that they ask him so many questions, and because Brendan has that problem calculating it all in his head, he's answering yes to the first question or no to the first question, but the way they're making it be is that he's answering yes or no to the last question, so even the Wayne doesn't know what he's saying yes at and what he's saying no at, because they've asked him multiple questions all in one. Now, and I've came back to this a lot, but it's because it's true. I just wish Brendan was that wee bit more confident in himself and knew a wee bit more about how he could stand up for himself, but be respectful by standing up for himself with the police. And when they were asking him the multiple questions, and he's saying yes or no, I wish he had the courage to say, well, what question are you asking me that you want the answer to? You know, it's not until after Brendan says yes or no to the questions that they say, well, is that a yes to seeing toes, or is that yes to seeing a foot? You
Right,
know, and
right,
that's
right.
making his brain go, well, what one do you want first? You know what I mean? So,
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, you're right. He has a condition, or not a condition. I don't know what to call it, but he has the ability to only process certain amount of information at once. So if you ask him, like, even if you yeah, no, Brendan's not a Dahmer. If you ask him 4 or 5 questions, even nowadays, sometimes he can only really reply to 2 of them. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Now if you ask him 1 question at a time, he'll answer them, obviously. He's not an idiot. It's just he can only process a certain amount of information at once and then, you know, respond to
yeah,
that. So when these interrogators are asking him, just like you and Darkside said, asking him 4 or 5 questions in a row, and he just sits there quietly, he's still processing the first question.
mm-hmm,
And plus,
yeah,
he's trying to figure out, what the heck do these men want out of me? Like, what do they want? That's the other
exactly.
thing that folded it up. If they asked him simple questions that he knew the answers to, it might have been a different story too. Because if they asked him, well, what's your favorite food, Brendan? Oh, and by the way, what's your favorite drink? What's your favorite TV show? And what's your favorite song nowadays? And then he might have a little bit better luck answering those questions because he knows the answer to them, right?
Yeah,
But if you
yeah,
ask him 4 or 5 questions of things that he has no idea what you're talking about, he doesn't understand what you're trying to get at. Um, like body parts in a fire, like he's probably still processing that by the time they get to the 3rd or 4th question.
exactly, exactly. With him saying, did you see body parts in the fire? What body parts did you see? That Wayne was thinking, body parts? What are you talking about? I never seen
Right.
body parts, you know?
Exactly. Like, what do you
And
mean
then
body parts?
they're
Did
asking
you
him,
think I saw a
was
body parts? You
yeah,
know?
yeah, exactly. Why are they thinking that they think I saw body parts, you know?
Yeah.
So the only answer that he knows is no. And then they're saying, well, are you sure? Did you see
Are you sure you
toes? Did you
didn't
see a
see?
foot?
Did you see a foot? Did you see a hand? I saw toes. Okay. Did you see a foot? Did you see an ankle? Did you see a leg? Did you see blah 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 blah? You know, it's just. And then, but like I said, every interview they ask him just the right kind of questions that plants enough information in his head to where later down the road he can include it in his story for them because he thinks that's what they want him to say.
Yeah,
When he talked about Martinez could be to blame in how Teresa was seen in Green Bay, Cops Day interview ended. Yeah.
yeah. It's true though. As soon as he started like maybe pointing the finger at somebody or something else, they were like, right, that's it done. And I guarantee you they were, when they switched off that tape, even though they're not supposed to, they're saying to her, come on, Brendan, what are you trying to do? You just need to tell us the truth. You know, we know
Yeah.
that, and
We
we're
know the
letting
truth,
you know
Brendan.
that
We
we
just need
know.
you to say it.
Yeah,
Yeah. So now let's start. So like back to this. So like I said, if you guys want to look up this interview, I highly suggest you look up every interview Brendan has done leading up to March 1st. I know it's really hard to read, but to better understand the March 1st interrogation, I feel like you need to read all of them leading up to it because, like I said, it's like a roadmap up to it. All right. Now, the officers who's been testimony in this case that this conversation was an interview. So they don't call it an interrogation. We learned that from, I don't know if you guys have been with me while I'm reading from the book Anatomy of a False Confession. But in that book, Michael Cincinnati basically described how they were able to get around the Miranda reading because technically the school was not considered an interrogation. It's considered an interview because they did not have, he was not being detained, and it was not in an official, like, interrogation room, like at the police office or whatever. So they were allowed. They had, that's their loophole, that they didn't have to read the Miranda warning. So technically, it's not considered interrogation. That's just a little interesting.
Yeah, the same
Yeah,
the
here we
same
go.
sort
What
of
is the difference between an
the,
interview and interrogation? Yeah.
yeah, the same sort of thing happened with in Luke's case as well, Becca. The first interview that, or interrogation, as like I call it, like you do, is that they say he was only a witness. He wasn't a suspect.
Right. Right.
But when Corrine finally got into the room with him on one of the interviews, her tape said witness and Luke's tape said suspect. You know, so how can he go so quickly for an interview, a volunteer interview, to a suspect? You know,
Right.
so they
Right.
had it in the feet that he was going to be a suspect anyway, and that's exactly what they did to Brendan.
Yeah. Well, they did it this way because then that way they could just be like, oh, well, you can say whatever you want. You don't need a lawyer. They
Yeah,
didn't have to tell him that, too. They didn't have to tell him, you could stop this, you could get a lawyer, blah, blah, blah. Like, it wasn't technically interrogation. But anyway, so what is the difference between an interview and interrogation? And the answer is, well, an interview is usually not accusatory and it's more open-ended. And the questions are asked that are not asked to elicit incriminating statements. An interview will always be non-custodial. There's no requirement to give any Miranda rights during an interview, see? The goal of an interview is not to get a confession or self-incriminating statements, but to get general and specific information that assists in an investigation. You won't see in a interview interrogation techniques. And when you review, so here's the question. When you review February 27th, questioning of Brendan Dassey, what was your opinion about whether or not it was an interview or interrogation? And then Fallon, again, I'm going to impose an objection since the fruits of this interview are not played in front of a jury.
of
Mr.
course they
Drizzen,
did. Of course they did.
why are we concerned? We're concerned because Dr. Leo has testified and will testify that psychologically coercive interrogation tactics from one interrogation, if repeated in subsequent interrogations, can have a psychologically coercive effect. And many psychological coercive interrogation tactics, as well as contamination, were introduced in February 27th interrogations. All right, I'll override the objection. Back to it. Do you remember the question, Doctor? Can you repeat the question? When you reviewed the February 27th interrogation video, interrogation audio tape at Mishicot High School, did you conclude that it was an interview or an interrogation? And he says an interrogation, which I agree. Technically, I feel like the context of that was an interrogation. Like I said, you guys should read it because it was interrogative. They weren't asking him questions as a witness. They were asking him questions as a suspect, and you can clearly see that, but they did that because they didn't want to read him his Miranda rights, the way they went about it. That's just my opinion.
Yep, that's exactly it, Becca. They did. If they read him his Miranda rights with the, you're entitled to a lawyer. If you don't have a lawyer, you can get one represented for you, and everything like that. Know that Brendan really understood that anyway. But as soon as they done that, then it's not an interview anymore. It is an actual interrogation. And he could say, no, that's it, stop.
Yeah, he could.
Whereas
and here's the thing. I feel like if they read him his Miranda rights more than once, like if they read it to him every single time they interviewed him or interrogated him, maybe by the one on March 1st, he would have said, you know what, I think I need a lawyer.
Yeah.
He may have. We don't know.
Not only that though. If they'd put the Miranda rights and on his terms that he could understand, i.e., right, Brendan, in short, because they would have showed him, all this writing and everything like that, and basically saying to him while the tape's running and everything like that, right, Brendan, what this is saying is you are entitled to a lawyer if you want one. If you can't afford to get one yourself, we can get one for you, and you don't have to talk to us without that lawyer being present.
Right.
Then Brendan would have understood that a bit more. But because they've done all the, you don't have to say anything, you're entitled to a lawyer. If you don't need, if you can't afford a lawyer, then one will be provided for you, blah, 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 blah. And that's why Brendan didn't understand it. Because in my opinion, and this is just my opinion because I don't know, the only time I think Brendan ever heard the Miranda rights being read, said, or anything was in a TV show.
Right.
And you know that a lot of things in the TV shows are not real.
Yeah.
So because these and they've probably they said this to him, and he's like, oh my God, what they actually say on TV is real, but no really understanding what it's meant.
Though? Here's what I learned about so far in this book, The Anatomy of a False Confession. When each state has a different way of reading the Miranda rights. In some states, you have to do it word for word as it says. In other states, you can go, verbatim or whatever. And I guess Wisconsin is one of those verbatim states where you can basically give like a rundown of your Miranda rights in your interpretation of them. So this is exactly what Mark Wiegert read to Brendan on February 27th. I just want you, so this is exactly word for word what he said to Brendan. You have the right to talk to a lawyer for advice before we ask you any questions and have him with you during questioning. You have this right to the advice and presence of a lawyer even though you can't afford to hire one. We have no way of getting you a lawyer, but one will be appointed for you if you wish, and if and when you go to court. That's exactly how they read it. Now, okay, so I just also want to clarify the first interview on the 27th was at the school, and then he later in the day on the 27th, he went to the jail. So the terms of an interrogation changed because at the school, it's not considered a quote unquote interrogation because he's not being detained and he's not in a police interrogation room or structure, right? That's what makes an interrogation technically. When he was taken to I believe it was the Two Rivers police station, that then became an interrogation because he was being in the interrogation room with the officer. So they had to read him his Miranda rights then. They didn't have to at school, but they had to in the police office station. And that's what they read to him, which was very, it's pretty fucked up.
It's confusing.
It's confusing, yeah. So they said you have the right to talk to a lawyer before we ask you any questions and have him with you during questioning. We will, you have this right to a presence of a lawyer even though you can't afford one, but we have no way of getting you a lawyer.
Yeah.
But you will be appointed one when you go to court. You're not in court, though. You're in an interrogation room.
Exactly. That's what I was just going to say, Becca. So with him saying that bit, I think what Brendan's picked up on is we can't get you a lawyer.
Yeah, we can't get you a lawyer, can't afford one, but you can have one.
Which he probably knew his mum and that couldn't afford to get him a lawyer. So Dave says, you can get a lawyer if you want if you can afford a lawyer. Well, Brendan knows that his mum and that can't afford to get him a lawyer. And then they're saying, well, we can't get you a lawyer. So, You know,
Yeah. You're
you'll
allowed
get
to
a
have a
lawyer.
lawyer. Yeah, you're allowed to have a lawyer in here with you. And talk to a lawyer before you answer any more questions. But we can't get you a lawyer.
Yeah.
But one will be appointed to you later, which isn't the truth. If he said, I want my lawyer, then they would have stopped the interview. They would have contacted Barb, actually.
Yeah.
And then Barb would
Yeah.
have had the burden of getting him a lawyer because he's still a minor.
Yeah. But not only that, that last bit as well, about you know, if you can't afford a lawyer, we can't get you a lawyer, but you'll get a lawyer when you go to court. Well, as far as Brendan's concerned, he's gone nowhere near a courtroom. So in his mind, he's only going to get a lawyer if he goes to court.
Right. Which that's a lot to process because he's like, what do you mean going to court? Because this whole entire time they're like, oh, we're just talking. You're just helping us. So now you're talking about court? That probably was like, what, court? You know, if he even picked up on that, because that's a lot, like I just read was a whole paragraph of things. Did he even pick up on that part? We don't know. He didn't, but it wasn't like he read it on, it's not like what you hear on TV though. So he could have even said, I don't think I remember being read my Miranda rights because there was nothing like what you say on TV.
Yeah, there was nothing familiar in it for him to recognize. Oh
yeah,
no,
I think
this
they did that on purpose too, because they know that it's in the media. They know that you have the right to remain silent, everything you use to say, blah, blah. If they said it exactly like they would have said on TV or how it was supposed to be read, then it probably would have flagged to him, oh, I'm being arrested, because that's usually what people think when you start reading your Miranda rights.
Yeah,
but because he didn't read it like that, he read it verbatim. It changed the context of it for. It's another tactic. It's another tactic to get him to talk to them.
Yeah.
So when you reviewed March 27th interrogation room, and it's interrogation. And why? Because they were using interrogation techniques and they were seeking to elicit incriminating statements. And so it looked like not only were they using interrogation techniques, but they were trying to accomplish what is the goal of an accusatory interrogation. Okay. And in your experience, is it common for police officers to portray interrogations as interviews? Yes, very common. Is there a legal significance to this distinct between interrogations and interviews? Yes. What is the significance? Well, the significance would be that if it's an interview, then there's no requirement for the Miranda. If it's an interrogation in custody, then of course Miranda is required. And there may be other constitutional issues triggered as well. Okay. I'm going to refer to you to Exhibit 315, page 1, clips 1 and 2. Hold on a second. Let's see right there. Go ahead. Blah, 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 blah. 1, 2, okay. What are you talking about? Okay. Haven't reread them, but okay. Early in the interrogation on February 27th, the following exchange occurred. Now, I had planned to play the 2/7/27 audio, Your Honor, but the 2/27 audio is too garbled to play. So I'm going to read these clips as they appear on Exhibit 315. They're not very long. Clip 1, Mr. Fassbender speaking. So like I said, this is all transcripts that you all could read as well. And again, please find them and read them yourselves. You're a kid, you know, and we've got people back at the sheriff's department, district attorney's office, and they're looking at this now saying, there's no way that Brendan Dassey was out there and didn't see something. They're talking about trying to link Brendan Dassey with this event. They're not saying that Brendan did it. They're saying that Brendan has something to do with it or the cover-up of it, which would mean Brendan Dassey could potentially be facing charges for that. Clip 2, again, Mr. Fassbender. We've gotten a lot of information. You know, some people don't care. Some people back there say, no, we'll just charge him. We said, no, let's talk to him. Give him the opportunity to come forward with information that he has and get it off his chest. Now, make it look You can make it look however you want. Okay, how would you describe the techniques that are being used in these clips? So he says, okay, you read two clips. I would describe them as interrogation techniques, first of all, and more specifically as inducements. These are the kind of techniques that interrogators use to make somebody think that it's in their best interest to confess or to give them information they're seeking, because there could be negative consequences for failing to do that. In the first clip, we've got people back at the sheriff's office, district attorney's office, and they're describing that they're trying to figure out what Brendan's culpability is and whether to link him to the crime. And they say explicitly here, you could be facing potential charges. So this would be an example of either a systematic or high-end inducement. Second one repeats the second of the two clips you read, repeats this issue of him being charged, and suggests also that he has an opportunity to get this off his chest or come forward and get this off his chest, which really is what we mean by low-end inducement. So these are classic interrogation techniques. They're inducements. They're conveying a high cost, being charged with murder for failing to confess, continuing to deny, and implying a benefit, implying that he may not get charged, which is bullshit, by the way. If anyone's going to try to connect you with a crime, then you're going to be charged.
Yep.
Just saying.
No, that is true. You've just got to take the other case that we've done, the Garrett Phillips case.
Yeah.
And Hillary, who he voluntarily went to the police station. They were asking him questions and things like that. He clicked on to what they were doing. He asked for his lawyer, and he knew that he could leave, but the cop stood in front of the door.
Yeah.
So
they
that
do
he
that
couldn't
a lot.
leave. You know, and if Hillary had touched him in any way whatsoever, then that was it. He was getting done for assaulting a police officer.
Right.
So
right.
even though you say that, yes, you can get up and leave whenever you want, that's not true, because
No,
they can stand in front of the door. They can stand there and say, oh, but come on, why are you leaving? And as soon as you try and leave and you touch that police officer, whether you mean to or not, then you're getting done.
That's
with
assault, yeah.
assaulting a police officer, you know?
You don't think that they'll charge you, like, off the bat? Oh, yes, they will. They
Oh,
love
yeah.
to do that.
Oh, yes, they will.
You can spit on an officer, and that's considered assault. A woman once sprayed her breast milk at an officer, and that was considered assaulting of an officer. So,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure you could breathe on an officer wrong, and they would somehow try to get
Oh,
that.
right. But that's not just in your country either, though, Becca. I mean, that happens here and all. You know, we do get the gung-ho police who the power goes to their head, and they think that they can do what they want and speak to you how they want, and everything like that, you know. And you get ones that if you scuff by them, not meaning to, you're just leaving out of their presence, and you scuff by them and touch them, oh, that's it, you're getting arrested for assault or breach of the peace. You know, it's ridiculous that some of them, how much the power goes to their head.
You know, that's why in these circumstances, they always say, you know, just stand firm and say, I would like to leave. Please move aside so I can leave this room. And if they try to fight you on that, say, I know my rights. And it's either you let me leave this room or bring me a lawyer.
Yep.
Yeah, you can record them too. I don't know if they allow you to bring your cell phone into the interrogation room these days. I can imagine they could try to take that away from you. But these days, you know, everyone has their cell phone on them. But yeah, you can record. You're allowed to do that no matter what a cop tells you, by the way. You're allowed to record in public. Just saying.
Yeah.
I got yelled at once by a cop because I took a picture of a car accident, and she came up to me and she started yelling at me, and I was like, I was a teenager. I'm like, I know my rights.
Yeah, but it's true. I mean, especially with you know, like them pulling people over, especially people of color, you know, pulling them
Right.
over for no reason whatsoever, you know, for a windy wiper that's not working properly, or you know what I mean. But your white person who's got the same thing wrong with their car, their windy wiper not working, then they're getting a warning and let go. You know what I mean? It's just it's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah, it
The
is.
the way that they think that they can get away with things, and they're not happy because of the updated phones and that we've got now, and that you can record them and there's nothing that they can do. And it's because they're being caught out on the behaviours that they've obviously done long before now, that they're actually being caught in the act, you know, and they don't like it
Yeah.
one bit.
No, they don't. They don't like it. But you know, you need to stand up for your rights and you need to protect yourself.
Yeah,
So that means recording and
yeah.
knowing
If
the
you're
law,
if you're out in the
knowing
street, record them. If you're at a police station, if you've asked to go to the police station, then you say, no problem, I'll go to the police station as long as my lawyer's there with me. You
right?
always ask for a lawyer, no matter what. When you're being
Yep.
stopped, lawyer. And keep saying lawyer. And even if they say to you, oh, well, if you've got nothing to hide, why do you need a lawyer?
Yeah.
Lawyer, you
Lawyer.
know, because a
Doesn't
lot of
matter.
them pull that. And that's why we
Even
do have the false confessions like Brendan, because they say, well, if you've got nothing to worry about, well, Brendan didn't think he had nothing to worry about because they were telling him, oh, we're just talking to you, you
yeah, we're
know,
just
and then the next
talking.
minute
You
it's,
get to go home after this. We just need your help.
yeah,
We're
yeah,
not going to charge you. I mean, he even said that. No, let us talk to him. He basically a roundabout way on February 27th of saying, we're trying not to charge you with something, so you need to talk to us.
yeah,
That's basically what they were saying to him.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And Brendan, no knowing nothing, spoke to them thinking that he was helping them,
Right.
even though he was digging himself into a bigger hole, you know. And it broke my heart after he sat and he told them all that stuff. And then he goes, can I go back to school because I've got an hour, a project due on the 6th hour? I'm like, oh my God, son, you've not got a clue
Yeah, he
what
hasn't a
has
single
just
idea.
happened, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Well, in all intents and purposes, he gave them exactly what they wanted, and he thought, okay, we're done here, right?
Yeah, can I go
You
back
know,
to school because I've got a project due, you know?
I
I mean, that broke my heart. It really did break my heart. And that's one of the reasons why I can't bring myself to watch the rest of the interviews in full, because I know he's terrified, you know,
yeah,
and these people have conned him and he's saying these things and now he's going to jail, you know, and I just can't do it. Watching what I've watched is enough, you know.
right. Yeah. Yeah, it's really hard. If you like I said, the interviews are really hard to watch, especially the March 1st one, because you could really see it all breaking down. And then a lot of people don't know this, but the whole interview is up on Mystic Jinx channel. Um, she was able to get the whole entire interview in its entirety from beginning to end. And there was like a good 40 minutes at the very end where Brendan's sitting in the interrogation room by himself. And that's where it hurts my heart. You know,
Yeah,
it's hard to watch him struggle and to see this basically child abuse happening, right?
yeah,
But then after it, he's sitting in this interrogation room alone and you can actually see him break down and start to cry. And
yeah,
that's where I wanted to just like that's where I wanted to come in and give him a big hug and um
yeah. Yeah, see, I couldn't bear that. I couldn't bear. I can reading it, we are reading it and everything like that, and foul play's done Brendan's transcripts as well, and you can see the emotion just by reading it. You can feel the emotion just by reading it, you know. So I think I would rather read it than actually see
Right, it's different.
Brendan's physical reactions and you know,
Yeah.
and demeanor and everything like that. Because, like you say, Becca, you just want to reach through the telly and grab him and give him the biggest hug and tell him it'll be all right, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really not. But like I said, I'm one of those people, like, to understand the whole picture, you have to look at each individual piece, and that's why it's important for me to watch and to read and to research into all of this stuff, because it's like it gives you a better understanding of everything that happened and why it happened. And um
Yeah,
it's hard, but
yeah.
I don't know, that's how I process things, that's how I get through things. I have to
Oh,
understand everything about it. So,
yeah. Yeah, no, no, totally, totally.
yeah,
But with being a parent as
it's
well,
different, yeah,
you
when you're
know,
a parent,
you
yeah,
can you can imagine that that's your son. So just by reading, I don't need to watch it to know how he's feeling, because I can read it and feel
right.
how he's feeling. And it might be a bit more intensified for me because I am a mum, and that could have been my son.
That
You know,
yeah,
it could be
yeah,
my son. It could be anybody's son. But a lot of people don't realize that, you know.
right. Yeah, no, I say this often, I don't have children, so I don't know how it is. I mean, I have children I care about, but they're not my offspring, they didn't come from me. Um, but
No, but
so,
if it
like,
was your niece or your
yeah, so
nephew,
I have a
you know,
connection like that, but, like,
yeah,
there is a different sort of connection if you do have a child, especially if you have a son or daughter that has the same kind of, I don't wanna say disability, but same kind of,
cognitive issue.
cognitive, yeah, cognitive issues, and you could watch it and you could say, "Oh my god, that is literally my kid."
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I don't have that, well, not well, I don't know how to say it, but one day I might, but, yeah, no, it is different when you have children and you can relate to it, like, on those terms, versus just, but, like, for me, it was just seeing another human being, and it's just like,
yeah.
yeah, I don't know. To
No,
understand what happened, yep, to understand what happened afterwards.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so let's see. So now some systematic inducements are psychologically coercive, and he says yes. Do you consider these systematic inducements psychologically? Wait, you now okay. I thought he was asking. Sorry. Now some systematic inducements are psychologically. Do you consider these systematic inducements psychologically coercive? So yes, I think the threatening him with facing charges and suggesting that he says will determine or could determine whether he gets charged and is linked to this very serious crime is coercive. I think it rises to the level of implying threat of charges if he doesn't give them what they're looking for, an implied promise or suggestion of leniency, or maybe even immunity if he does. Okay,
Yep.
Dr. Leo, in your writing, you use the term pro,
Pragmatic.
pragmatic, thank you, implication on occasion. Do you know what that term means? Yes, it's a term for lying from linguistics, and it conveys a very simple idea that in conversation we often imply meanings of certain things without explicitly stating them, and it's understood contextually, the meaning of what's being implied through particular language use. It is relevant in interrogation because essentially certain messages or meanings can be implied and understood without being expressly communicated. and particularly oftentimes promises or suggestions of leniency or threats of harsher or higher charging or punishment are implied pragmatically in context rather than explicitly stated, so someone would understand or is likely to understand their meaning even if it's not explicitly said. Okay, and has this idea of pragmatic implication been studied in context? See, he's having a hard time saying it. So, in context of police interrogations, it has, yes. Okay, can you describe some of this research? Well, it's been studied in two contexts. One context has been experimental context, where the experiment subjects are asked to read transcripts of experts in interrogations, and of course, in an experiment, you can vary the conditions. So then you have control groups and stimulus groups. You can give different transcripts and you can analyze what the people infer from the different transcripts, whether certain things are implied promises or implied threats, whether it's understood or not, and in various different conditions, including explicit threats and promises or other statements. So that would be experimentally based on real life interrogations. And then I just want to pause here actually because I just had this thought in my head. So let's take somebody like a child who's having a hard time cognitively connecting with the world around him, and you are saying things that are implied, would he pick up on that? Because that's basically things that you learned in society. Like if I say, don't do that or else, that's implying, or else is implying I'm going to do something much worse, right?
Yeah.
So if you have somebody who does not understand sarcasm, doesn't understand um, subtext and things, or doesn't process the world around them in the same way that a neurotypical person would they
Yeah.
understand what coercive techniques you're doing to them? I mean, some people are just literal, for instance, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Brendan could have thought of the, no, not necessarily Brendan, but anybody, if you say or else can mean something bad, like, oh, you'll go to jail, or else could mean like, because I used to say that to my Scott. I used to say, get that room tidied, or else,
Or else, yeah.
and the or else would be get your room tidied or you're grounded for a month, but if he didn't have the cognitive ability, the or else could mean if you don't get your room tidied, I'm going to slap you. You know what I mean? In that sort of way. Yeah.
So, but that's what I mean. So, like, if you take somebody who does not process the world in the same way a neurotypical person does, and you do these implied threats, they may not perceive them as threats, or or if you take something who's hyper vigilant and has like some sort of abuse in them. Not saying this is anything about Brendan. I'm just pointing these out because I think that's interesting. In somebody who's been in like an abusive situation, when you say something that could be slightly an applied threat, might be over hyper for them because, oh my God, they're going to do something really awful to me. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's
Yeah.
just an interesting. I just thought of this while reading this because you're basically it's up for interpretation what your implied threats are or promises. They
Yeah.
don't have to say, "Oh, Brendan, we're not going to arrest you or charge you," but they're implying it. But what is Brendan processing in that? I don't know. It's just a thought. Everybody's different too, so.
Yeah.
Um,
Definitely.
So that would be experimental based on real life interrogation. And then there's been field research of people who confess and analyze transcripts of their interrogation. In some cases, interviews with them about the meaning that they inferred from things that they were stated during interrogation, implicitly, whether they explicitly. See, yeah, with the meaning that they infer from things. Yeah. Okay, in your opinion, is there any practical difference in terms which is more coercive between a direct or a promise than the conveyed one through pragmatic implication? Not if the one conveyed through pragmatic implication is understood to be a threat. What really is important is how the meaning is understood or how it's conveyed and how it's understood and how it's understood. And a threat conveyed through implicitly through what we call pragmatic implication can be just as powerful as implicitly as one that's conveyed explicitly. Okay. Is the use of threats and promises conveyed through pragmatic implication a strategy that police officers use during interrogations to avoid being associated with direct promises or threats? Yes, the police officers themselves may deny that it's a strategy that they are using or that, in their opinion, it raises to the level of a threat or a promise. But it from a behavioral point of view, the answer is yes, that we that we have observed that. Okay. Now, Dr. Leo, I'd like you to turn to Exhibit 315, page 1, Clip 6, page 2, Clip 7. It's a lot of different places you want me to jump to. That's what I would tell him.
Yeah.
I don't have those places. Anyway. And then we'd play this, but I'm going to read this tape, this as well. Clip 6 from this investigator Wiegert now. But we want to go back and tell people that, Brendan told us what he know. We want to be able to tell people that Brendan was honest. He's not like Steve. He's honest. He's a good guy. He's going to go places in life. But in order for us to do that, you need to be honest with us. And so far, you're not being 100% honest. And then clip 7, Mark and I both, and then this is Fassbender speaking, Mark and I both can go back to the district attorney and say, Dassey came forward and finally told us, can imagine how this was weighing on him. They'll understand that. And then finally, Mr. Wiegert says, we'll go to bat for you, but you have to be honest with us. Are these examples of what you would call systemic endorsements? The first one, in and of itself, not necessarily. Number 6, although it would depend on the context which number 6 was given, if it had been processed by other systematic inducements or references to the consequences in the system for being honest, then contextually it may be referring back to those and conveying the meaning that honesty will pay off in terms of what the prosecutor will or will not do. So this would depend on context. If I just read this out of context, then I would say no. But it could, depending on context, refer back to something that is reestablish that meaning. And I just want to point out, if like I said, if you guys read the whole entire interview, you would see that it is that. So out of context, it doesn't seem like it, but if you read it in the actual interrogation from the beginning to the end, you'll see it is. In my opinion, it is. I'm not an expert, but number 7, I would say no question first. No question, because first of all, he is referencing the district attorney. The district attorney is the person who decides whether or not someone gets charged. And obviously, that has all kinds of implications in the term of depriving them from their liberty, possibly resulting in a conviction. And suggesting that they will go to bat for him depending on what he says, he has to be honest. And the meaning of going to bat suggests putting in a word or persuading or advocating on his behalf in a way that will minimize or reduce or eliminate his culpability. So I think this is no question. The second one you read, no question, is a systematic inducement. And I just also want to point out that Mark Wiegert and Tom Fassbender never actually did go to bat for Brendan. They didn't defend Brendan. They didn't sympathize with Brendan in court. They didn't, and no, they didn't go to bat for him. They let him out to dry. So they lied.
Yep. Bastards.
Yep. So with regard to the first one, when Mr. Wiegert, investigator Wiegert, says we want to go back and tell people, if the word people in that statement refers to people in the district attorney's office, then would you consider number 6 a systematic inducement? And then he says correct. Okay, now I want you to focus, if you will, on page 1, clip 4 and 5. Mr. Fassbender on the clip 4 begins saying, talk about it. We're not just going to let you high and dry. We're going to talk to your mom after this, and we'll deal with this in the best way we can for your good. I promise I will not let you high and dry. I'll stand behind you, which he doesn't. And then Wiegert then says, we both will, Brendan. We're here to help you, which they didn't. And number 5, Mr. Wiegert says, we want to help you through this, okay? Now I want you to focus on, if you will, page 2, clip 8, page 9, clip 9. By the way, I'm going to write these on a postcard and send them to Mark Wiegert and ask him, where was the help, Wiegert? Anyway. Okay, Mr. Fassbender then says, I promise you I'll not let you hang out there alone, but you've got to tell the truth. The truth is going to be terrible. That's interesting, right? Because he's already telling him, like, the truth that we want you to say is going to be terrible. So you just have to bear with us, right?
Yeah,
Clip 9,
exactly.
Mr. Fassbender says, talk to us, Brendan, if you want this resolved. And finally, clip 10, page 2, Mr. Wiegert says, it's not your fault. Remember that. Yeah, it's not your fault. Like I said, Mark and I are not going to leave you high and dry. Okay, what in your opinion is the significance of these repeated suggestions that the officers are there to help Brendan if he talks? I think these clips that you just pointed to again are systematic inducements. I think, again, they convey some sort of promise or suggestion or infliction of more lenient treatment. The offer to help sounds like it could convey the idea of helping him not face liability, not get charged by a district attorney, not get caught up in the system. And I think that in this context also, we're not going to leave you high and dry, which implies being left high and dry, that he would be the one who's charged or blamed for this crime. And then they say, clip 9, talk to us, Brendan, if you want this resolved. I think that implication there is resolved means resolved for him. He walks out, he doesn't have to face criminal charges. He doesn't get caught up in this. And then, of course, Fallon objects. Why do you object? I'm going to object to this being speculation. And until we have evidence that's going to tie this up as to how these were taken by the defendant, then I subject. What kind of evidence do you need, Fallon? Oh my God.
I don't. He's a twat. He is a fucking twat.
Like,
he really is.
What kind of evidence? Brendan's sitting right there. Brendan, did you take it like that? Say yes, Brendan. Like, what more evidence do you need, Fallon? Oh my God. I'm sorry. Sustained. Dr. Leo, are these kind of tactics, in your opinion, particularly problematic with juveniles? Yes. Are they particularly problematic when used with people of below average intelligence? Yes. Why? Because we know that juveniles and people with low level intelligence or low level cognitive functioning are more susceptible to interrogation pressure and influence, more likely to make false confessions, are easier to coerce into making false confessions. I want to move on to March 1st. So I think now we're going to stop because it's been an hour. And before we get into the March 1st interview. No, what? What? Traumatized for a child. Ask me what? Oh, okay. Anywho. Yeah. So we're gonna stop right here. Page is this? 65. Okay. You have any comments, Alice? Anything?
No, I think we've said it pretty well. They're all fucking twats. And they coerced a fucking child, and it's child abuse. No matter how you look at it, it's child abuse. And they got away with it. Yeah, they got away with it, and it's disgusting that they can get away with it and still get away with it now.
They still got away with it. Yeah, they still are not being held accountable for what they did. Mark Wiegert went on to be a sheriff, which is, I think, the highest that an officer or whatever can get to. So, I mean, he went to the top, and he is retiring this year, which leads me to this plug here. Let me bring it up. If you guys, Brendan's birthday's coming up, and me and a couple other supporters came up with an idea of sending Mark Wiegert postcards, reminding him that, you know, we will never forget his role in everything that he did to Brendan, saying, you know, no matter what, I mean, you're still the reason, part of the reasons why Brendan's in prison. So if you want to send a respectful, polite, but supportive postcard from Brent on behalf of Brendan, you can email UK postcards for brendan@gmail.com if you're in the UK area. And if you're anywhere else in the world, Brendan Talks 89@gmail.com, and we will get some postcards out to you. I'm almost out, but as soon as I'm out, I'm going to be ordering a brand new design. So please ask. They're free. They're 100% free. You don't have to even pay for postage. Yeah. So please feel free to do that. You even send them a letter. Also, we're sending these postcards to Governor Evers and anybody else. I did mail out a whole bunch of postcards yesterday. So Roxana, you should be getting 2 envelopes filled with postcards, and a bunch of other people. I even think I sent you, I don't recall, postcards. I mean, if I have your address and you're not in the UK, you're getting a postcard from me, whether you like it or not. So do with that as you wish. But the UK people, please reach out to Rhonda, UK postcards for Brendan at gmail.com. She also, her postcards are on the right of the screen, the one where Brendan is looking down. Excuse me, one where he's looking down. It's a beautiful postcard. I actually asked for some myself, and that's what I was writing on yesterday after I sent. I brought a whole bunch of postcards with me to work, and I was packaging up the last bit of them, of my postcards, and I ran out, the ones I brought with me. So but then I had hers that she gave me, so I was filling those out. So I'm sure if you in America also want one of her postcards too, she'd be happy to send you some. I asked her for some because I really like them too. They're beautifully made, and My postcards are awesome too, but just saying. Yes, Brendan called me yesterday. He's doing really well. He sounded really positive, and we joked a lot about the different Pokemon. One of the things is that one of the new Pokemon that came out is a crab called Cloth. Okay, Dozer, I will. Is called Cloth, and I was telling him in an email that I love this Pokemon. This is like amazing Pokemon, top notch Pokemon. And he was telling me during the phone calls, I don't think I like Cloth. I was like, what? What do you mean? You don't think you like Cloth? It's a crab. It looks cute. What do you mean? You don't know if you like them. Here, hold on. I thought that was hilarious, and we both laughed about that. I'm actually gonna be sending him a bunch of different pictures of this Pokemon now because you will love it, Brendan. Okay. I think I hold on.
There's just too many now. I mean, my son used to be into Pokemon, but it's only the the more popular ones that I can remember, like
Right.
Charizard, Charmander, Squirtle, Bulbasaur, those kind of things. Because I've not had a child young enough lately who's been into Pokemon, so I couldn't tell you any of the newer versions or anything like that. And Meow as well, or Mew, I should say. So that's about the only ones I know of the Pokemon. If you show me a Bulbasaur, a Squirtle, a Charizard, Charmander, things like that, I'll be like, oh, that's Charmander. But any of the rest of them, I mean, I've seen some pictures that you've put up, and I'm like, don't know that one, don't know that one, don't know that one.
Yeah, I really there's a lot, and I'm trying to get my nieces and nephews into Pokemon. I have my two best friends' daughters really love Pokemon, so they're easy. But and then my other best friend's two sons really, but I'm trying to get my niece Ruby into Pokemon. And she's just not taking. Although recently she got the Pokemon Happy Meal from McDonald's. So she actually FaceTimes me and was opening up the cards and being like, look, Aunt Becca, look. And I'm like, oh my God. And then I asked my sister if I could send her Pokemon cards. And she's like, no. So I was like, okay, well, I'm still doing it. So I don't know why I asked. But yeah. So I'm really hoping that it's she's starting to love Pokemon because I think that's awesome to bond with, all these kids in my life over that. But you're right, there was, I think there was like for how the original was like 150 and now it's almost like 800 Pokemon. So
Jeez.
and you gotta
Yes, those are. I'm more a never-ending story person as well. Definitely, that was a fantastic movie. One of my childhood favorites was
okay,
Never Ending
cloth.
Story.
Never mind.
So
Ignore what I just put in chat. Ignore that one. No, how you spell it is cloth. It's like claw. Hold on. Hold on. KLAWF. Claw. Like that. Like claw. Like, crab's got a claw. But
right,
at the end. It's silly. I know. Okay, hold
cloth.
on. I'll show you guys. I just love the face. It has such a derpy little, like, oh my God, I'm just like, oh, you're the cutest thing in the whole entire world. This is the Pokemon. It's a crab. How could you not love that face? I don't understand why. But yeah, he looks cute. But anyway, Is there anything going on in foul play or on your channel, Alice, that you want to
Uh,
plug?
yes, tonight, foul play. We're going over the huge document dump on the Coburn versus Netflix case. And there was a
Oh,
huge load of documents that was dumped, and the marvelous Cherie got us all the documents. So we've been going through that. We're going earlier tonight. I mean, we were on for 5 hours last night, just going through some of the documents. So we're going tonight. It'll be 9:45 p.m. UK time. Tonight, which is normally 11 o'clock UK time, but
yeah.
tonight is 9:45 UK time. And we're going over some more of the documents and everything like that. And I'll do a Jinxie, and what Jinxie says, Colburn's going to lose.
Yeah, that's been really fascinating. I know a lot of us have been talking about that on when I talk to other people on Discord. So I'm fascinated with the case because I believe this is the first time somebody has tried to sue Netflix over a documentary. I could be very wrong. I don't know. But this is the first time I'm aware of it. And it's definitely going to be interesting just from a perspective of how the courts treat this case. And it kind of will set a precedence for other documentaries in the future as far as people who are involved in them. But whatever. I don't think he's going to win. Obviously, I think he's an idiot and he's way over his head. And that's just my opinion, which
Oh
I'm
no,
sure.
no, he is definitely way in over his head, Becca. Just with what we've been reading, and everything like that, you can clearly see that people have been in his ear,
Right.
saying, "Oh, you should sue, you should sue, you should sue," um, you know, um, and it's not looking too good for him. And I seriously hope that this judge is going to be like, no, that's it. You know what I mean? Because if Coburn wins this case, this is going to open up the floodgates to a whole different thing and open doors up that shouldn't be opened for anything. Um, Alice, tell
Yeah.
Becca about Scotland Yard, Mark. Like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Cole, he's that desperate, Colburn, in his filings, Becca, that he's even mentioned that Scotland Yard here in the UK done an article on Making a Murderer, and basically what they were saying is the amount of shenanigans that has went on in Making a Murderer and what happened. But he has actually cited this article in one of his motions, about
Right.
being defamed and ruining his career and everything like that. It's like they've probably looked at it. It's not like any of them have took the chance to watch the whole series. They've probably picked up on things and they've probably went, oh my God, that is a fucking sham.
Uh,
And that's probably about the extent yet. But he has mentioned this article in his motions. I mean, even we didn't know about that this article existed until I read it in that motion last night, and I was like, one of the busiest, highest departments in the UK and England
right.
is going to take time to watch a documentary and then diss Andrew Colburn, just diss Andrew Colburn. I don't think so. But I went
Right.
and I checked, and yes, there is an article there from Scotland Yard, but they're not just talking about him himself. They're talking about the whole thing, what happened to
Right.
Brendan, what happened to Stephen, the investigation, all of the officers and people involved, but he's making out that it was just about him. And it's like, it's so ridiculous what he's trying to do. So Again, I'll do a jinxie. Colborne's going to lose. Well, we hope so.
Oh my god. Yeah, no, he's gonna lose, and this is a good lesson in the American court system. You can't just sue somebody and think that suing somebody is gonna do something. You have to show evidence. You can't just say, "Oh, they're being mean about me." You have to show actual proof that
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that you lost income or whatever. And if he clearly hasn't, I mean,
No.
he's still employed with somebody. Um, and, and as far as I'm concerned, Colburn is if his role really is um culpable in this crime, then I'm sorry, then you deserve everything coming towards you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've
So
read the transcripts and everything like that. The only person that made him look stupid and
it's him.
corrupt was himself.
Yeah, he's the one that if he truly did half the shit that he did, I mean, he admitted to doing. It wasn't
Yeah,
like they made up lies. You know,
yeah. Oh,
he
he
really
wanted to
did.
sue everybody. He wanted to go after everybody, Becca. He wanted to go after Farak. He wanted, because he done an article. He wanted to go after Jerry. He wanted to go after Dean. He's wanted to go after basically everybody that has said that he's corrupt, and it's like, it's
Right,
just not going to happen. Because
right.
if that's the case, then we may as well shut down our channels and everything like that and not continue with what we're doing.
Well, we
You
have the
know?
right to state our opinion, and our opinion isn't keeping him from having a job. That's the thing.
No,
He can't prove loss of income. He can't prove that foul play or Brendan talks is keeping him from living his best life. He can
no.
he's way over his head.
Yeah, he definitely is. He's definitely way over his head. And it's just, it's starting to look pathetic now,
Yeah.
because
I
he's
think
clutching at straws.
Yeah, and somebody asked us like how could he get this far? Well, he's paying his lawyer. Clearly his lawyer doesn't give a shit as long as he's getting paid. So,
Yeah, but that's just it. We don't know who's paying for it, Becca. We don't
well,
know who's subsidizing this
oh,
lawsuit.
you mean it could be the Manitowoc Police Department themselves?
Possibly anything's possible in fucking Wisconsin. So yeah, yeah.
Right. Well,
But I
that's their
think he
loss
said
then
people,
because they're the ones losing money in this. They're not going to win anything.
no, no, definitely not. Definitely not. But he's had people in his ear because this started in 2018, this
Yeah.
lawsuit, him trying to get somebody to take this lawsuit on. And he's been through and went to umpteen lawyers to try and get this in a court, And
Yeah.
New Greaseback has recused himself from the case.
Because he knows it's
So
going to lose. It's a sinking ship.
yeah, what dark side of question? So yeah, he's looking, he's still looking at himself stupid, and I hope to God the judge just flings it out. I really do.
Yeah. Ooh, look
Who
at
was
this one.
Culver's attorney that is now a judge? Thought that was interesting. Oh God, dark side, I can't remember. I think we just went over that last night too. I don't think it was Flowers. I don't think it was Flowers. Oh God, you've stumped me there, but dark side, I can't remember. His ex-attorney is now a judge. Do you know who that is? No, no, off the top of my head, I don't. Sorry. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Maybe he was hoping that it was going to go up in front of that judge, and then he might have had a chance. But it's went up against somebody who's been like, nah, you know what I mean? Prove your point.
Yeah. she scheduled me. Okay. Well, yeah. Anywho, that's interesting. So I guess what time is that going to be tonight?
It'll be 3:45 Central your time, and it's 9:45 UK time.
Okay. So if you guys want to check out that live on Foul Play, let me see if I can get the link, or if somebody else can get there quicker than me, for the Foul Play YouTube channel. And also they have a lot of other things on their YouTube channel. Like I said, like Alice mentioned, they went over transcripts already of certain interrogations and certain court hearings and blah, blah, blah. I'm sure, I don't know if they actually went over this one. No, did they, Alice? Did they actually read this one?
I think we've done all the ones that we have.
Okay. But either way, there's so much information on Foul Play YouTube channel and on their website. So please feel free to like check it out and go there and sub to them, and then huh?
That's it. There is just so much information in this case. It's hard to retain it all,
Thank
you
you,
know.
Sheree. I was just gonna paste it. You got there first. All right. Oh, and then Alice did too. Good job, guys. Good teamwork. Um, but yeah, please check them out and subscribe to them and catch their lives that they do. They do really great open mics and all sorts of information on there. And then on their website, foulplay.site, you know, they have all this information that you can find there. And then, like I said, Brendan Talks Discord has the Brendan related case files and all that stuff if you guys want to check out there. And yeah, so, and then I think today's Sunday, so tomorrow morning I'm going to be reading more from that book, Anatomy of a False Confession, if you guys want to check it out. And yeah, great live, Alice. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm going to log off here and I'm going to go finish up this Dahmer documentary, and I'll try to catch the Foul Play open mic, and I hope everyone has a great weekend. And also, like I said, keep an eye out for postcards. If you are not in the UK, I sent a whole bunch of postcards. If you are in the UK, please message Rhonda so she can send you postcards at ukpostcardsforbrendan@gmail.com. And let's get those out there to Evers and Wiegert and anybody else that you feel inclined to send them to. All right. Let's see. What should we close on today? How about this one?
We saw things that I think have never been seen before in a court of law. I can't think of another case where a defense attorney and his investigator plotted to pressure their client to plead guilty to a case that in which he was expressing his innocence.
That tape was somewhat disturbing, I think.
It was extraordinarily disturbing, and Michael O'Kelly is a seasoned investigator, and I believe what he did to Brendan Dassey traumatized him.
The first question you have to ask yourself is, you're going to spend the rest